day. I did say 6 o'clock. It's about to be 6, a couple minutes early. So far, we're testing. We're going to wait until 6 o'clock hits and then we will start talking. So bear with me, guys. Hi, guys. Hello, Jackson Walter. Hello, Rick. Yes, I'm in the house. Actually, I'm in my. So I am actually at my father's house. For some reason, I couldn't make it home on time, and I figured I might as well do it here since I was working on these items. I figured it'd be a good way to start the live video on these items, as you can see here. And so today's video, as if if you guys saw the title of the video, it is seasoning on a gas grill. So as you can see here, I do have some pieces that are these are vintage pieces, so these aren't new. I just restored these. This is the Wagner Ware Sydney O Chef Skillet 9-inch. That is a number 10 3-notch Lodge, and this is a Southern Mystery Skillet. It's the initial skillet, and I'm currently restoring these. Hello, Jackson Walter, Honey Badger, Rick, Papa Dan. I know you guys usually tune in for Cast Iron Chaos, his live stream show. I think he did cancel today. I know he is moving. I usually tune in to watch him as well. Hello, Mr. Finn's Fish. I usually, as I mentioned, tune in to watch Cast Iron Chaos, but lately I've been getting into the live streaming as well, just to see how it goes. I did one last week. I've done, I want to say 2 or 3 so far, but I did one last week and I think it went pretty well. Last week was about Wagner Ware skillets. This week was going to be about Griswold or BSR. But as I mentioned, change of plan, guys. So sorry for those of you that were hoping that we would talk about BSR and Griswold, or for me to show you guys. So oh, my Thanksgiving. I think that was actually a live for Christmas. I think I did a live for Christmas. So hopefully you guys saw that. But anyway, as I mentioned, we're getting ready to start. It is 6:02. My time over here. I am in the West Coast. It is 6:02 here. So let's just get started, guys. All right. So, as I mentioned, these are pieces that I had in a lye bath. And I had these in the lye bath. I had them there for about 2 weeks. So this is a Southern Mystery Skillet. It's actually warm right now because I did give them I think this is my second coat of seasoning. So this is a second coat. I will post a video of what they looked like prior to all this. But here you guys are witnessing the seasoning of these. All right, so let me grab something to hold these real quick. All right, and as I mentioned, guys, these are warm. And I'm just going to use some shop towels. Didn't bring my gloves with me. So be very careful when seasoning cast iron, guys. You can burn yourselves. But I like doing a lot of my seasoning outdoors, especially during the summer, during the winter. I just like doing my seasoning outdoors. And the reason being is that it does build up a good amount of smoke in your home. And if you guys are sensitive to that stuff, it will fill your house with smoke. And usually you don't want to be doing that. Stovetop seasoning is great as well, but you will get a good amount of smoke as well. So any kind of seasoning, I do recommend that you do it on a gas grill, on a charcoal grill, whatever you like. You know, and there is also the outdoor stove burners that you guys could use and do a stovetop seasoning that way outside as well. So many ways, but my preference is to do it outdoors, and the reason being, as I mentioned, you avoid all that smoke inside your house. And I was doing that when I first started collecting cast iron and using cast iron. I would season inside my house, and my wife and my kids were like, "Daddy, why is it so smoky in here?" And I'm like, "Oh shoot, you know, it is smoky in here." And my wife would say, "What is going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm seasoning." And I knew that that would happen, but I was hoping that nobody would notice. Obviously, that wasn't the case. So from there on, I've been seasoning outside, and not only is it better for our health, it's easier for me to do it outside as well, and without having to breathe all that stuff in. But anyway, let's get to it. All right, guys. So as you can see here, this is the Wagner Ware Sydney O chef skillet. Number it's a 9-inch. So when I first got this, my brother brought it over, and he actually gave me these for my birthday. So my birthday was 2 weeks ago, and so he brought this here, and he says, I can't see anything on the bottom. He says, but I think it might be worth some money. And I said, okay, well, let me take a look. And sure enough, I right away I recognized the handle. But as you can see here, very smooth. And so far, as I mentioned, I am seasoning this. This is the second coat. But let's see the handle. As you can see, this handle design is very Wagner. You know, that's their style. And especially with this little indentation here, you can see that. Let me pull the camera so you guys could see a little bit better. As I mentioned, you know, that handle design is very, you know, Wagner style. So right off the bat, I could see that it was a Wagner. And as I mentioned, the bottom was actually completely encrusted over with carbon buildup. So you couldn't see much underneath. And but I knew that it was going to be a great skillet. So I was very happy. And as I mentioned, I placed this in a lye bath. I do not have an electrolysis setup. I've seen videos on how to do it, guys, but it does look a little complicated, and right now I don't have that much space to do very much of that stuff. So as I mentioned, the lye tank is what I like to use at the meantime, and it has worked well for me. So if you guys want to do restoration, I do recommend getting into possibly doing some building a lye tank and restoring your skillets in that manner. I don't recommend wire wheel. I don't recommend grinding. Sandblasting can also damage thinner pans. So it's on, you know, and all that stuff is debatable. Everybody has their way of doing things. And if you guys have your own skillets and you like to sand them, then that's fine. You know, you do as you like. That is your stuff. But if you are going to restore and restore to sell, the best way and the best methods are, as I mentioned, electrolysis is the #1 method. From there, you can do lye tanks, vinegar baths to etch into the metals. If you have a pan that has been wire wheeled, vinegar baths etch into that metal or into the iron so that you can get a little bit more seasoning to adhere to the metal if it has been wire wheeled or sanded or anything of that nature. But that's just moving on to something totally different, guys. Now, let me read some comments here, guys. So what do we have? So Rick says, last week was great. Thank you, Rick. Jackson Walter, my memory failed me. I just remember it was unplanned holiday one. Yes, no worries. Jackson, yeah, it was actually the Christmas. I think we did cinnamon rolls. Let's see what else. Papa Dan, Luis, is that BSR chef skillet? No, that is, as I mentioned, that is the Wagner Ware. Luis, turning it over gave me a different view. That's a Wagner show. Yes, it is. Agree with you. Okay. Honey Badger, I use cast iron cure beeswax seasoning. Minimal smoke during seasoning, plus it smells good. Yes, I do like using beeswax, anything beeswax. A lot of the, I guess you could say the newer stuff, the new seasoning blends that are coming out, especially from even the new modern manufacturers, they like doing the beeswax mix as well. So they'll do something like grapeseed oil, canola oil, and beeswax. Um, I think, what's his name? Steven from Cast Iron Cookware. I think that's his channel. Great guy, a lot of information. I love watching his channel. And he has his own line, Easy Beasy. That one, I used it before. My thoughts on it is that it is great. I love the product. It gives you a sheen, a nice glossy sheen when you season with that one. And it smells great. The Buzzy Wax also gives you a great coat. A lot of people know Buzzy Wax, but the only thing about that one is that what I noticed in my personal opinion is that it leaves it a little bit more matte, and that's okay. You know, no big deal there. But yeah, all these upcoming seasoning blends usually include beeswax, and I love it. It's great because it smells great, and I have noticed that it actually gives your pans or any of your cookware a nice, almost non-stick coating to it. So that's just something that is very beneficial for the new seasoning products that are out. So, and for the cast iron user for that matter. But anyway, guys, now that I showed you the Wagner Ware, as I mentioned, it's great condition. I do love it a lot. This one's going to be one of my, I feel like it'll be one of my dailies, especially for eggs. Let's go into the Southern Mystery Skillet. And the reason, guys, that I'm holding this with a shop towel is that they are hot. I gave them an initial coat of seasoning prior to doing the live. So as you can see here, so this is a initial skillet with the letters HO. So this is, you know, it has no other markings. Very rough casting, as you can see here. Just not the greatest casting in the world. Also just the overall work on it. You can tell here that they hit it with the grinder or whatever it is that they used back then. But they left this lip here, and then got it going again over here. And just overall, as I mentioned, just not the best stuff. But one of the things that I like about this mystery skillet is that it is very lightweight for considering that it is a number 9. Excuse me, guys. My watch is going off. I set an alarm. But anyway, so as I mentioned, as you can see here, just let's see if I can get the camera to. As you can see, I mean, just the quality overall it's not the best, and it looks like it got hit by a grinder here. And then the 9, the casting is not that great, but as you can see, it has been milled, so it is a very nice pan. It sits flat. It doesn't wobble too much. It does have that kind of like that raised lip to almost be like a heat ring. So the only thing that I have noticed is that it does have somewhat of a indentation here that pops up, or a bubble has formed from use. But overall, still in great shape, and then I want to keep it as as part of my collection. I don't know if I'm gonna be necessarily cooking with this. Heck, I might even consider, guys, to give this Southern Mystery Skillet away in a giveaway. Let me know if you guys would like this Southern Mystery Skillet. As I mentioned, not very heavy, pretty lightweight. It's been milled. Right now, obviously, the seasoning looks kind of splotchy, and yeah, as I mentioned, this is the second coat of seasoning. So yeah, not gonna be perfect all around right now. It still needs more seasoning to build up. But that is the Southern Mystery Skillet, guys. Let me read some comments real quick. All right, let's see. All right. And also, Papa Dan, I actually haven't heard of the cast iron cure beeswax. Never heard of that, but you mentioned that you can get it at on eBay. So I think that's something I'd like to check out. Hello, Curtis Becker. Curtis, Hard to tell if grinder work was factory or a previous owner. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing with these items. To me, that's how it came. I can only assume that that's just something that was originally, you know, how it was originally produced. I want to say that, you know, when they made this, they would obviously hit it with a grinder, and it just doesn't look like they took their time with this. But that's fine. You know, it still works. It's still a usable piece. But as I mentioned, I am considering of possibly either keeping it in the collection or possibly doing a giveaway with it. So let me know if you guys are interested. We can do a giveaway on that initial skillet there. Hello, Cynthia Wesley. Good evening, everybody. No, you're not late. We did start a little bit early. Let's see what else. All right, let's get going. Let's go switch over to the last one here that I'm working on. So the last one is still warm actually. The last one is a 3-notch lodge. And I've been looking for something like this for some time now. And I was almost considering purchasing one on eBay because I wanted one for my collection. This is a 3-notch lodge, number 10. But as you can tell, it has no SK marking, no, you know, the SK logo or print. It doesn't also say made in USA. So, and one of the other things that I love about it is the milling. This is beautiful. I mean, the milling on this is amazing. It almost looks like it would be brand new. It doesn't look like they used it very much. It didn't have that much seasoning built up, but I still wanted to place it in the lye bath, so I did. The only issue that I've seen here is actually, I don't know if you guys can tell, but right there has a small, I guess you could say, imperfection, you know, a casting flaw. But other than that, this thing is amazing. One thing that I will say is that it is extremely heavy. So not the lightest. And obviously, if we compare this number 10 to the number 9, you can see just the differences. You can see the differences between the quality. So this is obviously a Southern Mystery skillet. We really don't know who manufactured this, but as I mentioned, you know, just the casting work on it, not the best. Overall, just you know, as I mentioned, not the best, and you know, there's imperfections here and there. And then you take a look at Lodge's work. I mean, I want to say, I think, from what I know, and you know, don't quote me on this, guys, but from what I know, I want to say this might be one of the first Lodge skillets that were made with the automatic, what do they call it, a Dissa machine, which was pretty much automated on how they made their cookware. So instead of hand poured iron and you know, factory workers working on that, I think that this is when Lodge started doing the Dissa machines, using the Dissa machines to have their iron poured, because just the quality of it, I mean, this thing looks like, if it was, once I get it to a, you know, a nicer, darker patina, this thing is going to be looking like as if it was something off from the shelves at the store. I mean, just the work on it, the craftsmanship, I mean, perfect all around, no imperfections, perfectly, you know, perfect edges. As I mentioned, you know, small imperfections, but overall a super clean skillet. And as I mentioned, the most attractive thing about this skillet is just the millwork on it. So yeah, this is and it sits completely flat. So that's what makes me also believe that it was never possibly used, or if it was used, it was lightly used. And this is a great score. And as I mentioned, my brother got me these for my birthday. So he got me the initial skillet and the Lodge 3-notch, along with, as I mentioned, the Wagner 9-inch chef skillet. So with all that said, guys, I will show you guys what I do with my seasoning. What I like to do with restored pieces, how I season them. So bear with me. Let me go grab my my oil, and I will show you guys in a minute. All right, guys. So when I usually cook and I usually fry things, what I like to do, guys, is I usually like to save my oil. So say I fry a batch of fries, or I fry a batch of chicken. If the oil isn't heavily burnt or anything of that nature, or isn't heavily used, what I do is I grab a strainer, obviously let it cool, grab a strainer, and I save my bottles, and then I pour it back. So here's an example of the vegetable oil that I used recently to cook some food, and I poured it back. This thing was full, and I've been using this for some time now. So instead of throwing away the oil, I repurposed it to season my restored pieces. And I feel like, you know, considering, yes, this is vegetable oil, it still does a great job on seasoning cast iron pieces. So for me, this is a great way to repurpose oil that perhaps has been used 2 or 3 times, or you possibly don't know what to do with. So at that point, I save it, and save it for an occasion like this, where I'm going to be seasoning multiple pieces when I restore. Or, you know, just keep it with you guys and use it for restoration, or for maintenance, for just seasoning your pieces that you already have. That's my method. So I pour a little bit of this on to each of these, and the paper towels that I like to use, because I use paper towels, I don't use rags, but I like to use this brand. So I usually use the Scott brand shop paper towels, very well known, and I like to buy the box, which comes with 200. This box goes about $15. You can get these at like Home Depot, Lowe's, and they don't leave lint. So this is one brand that I like a lot. Now, if you feel iffy about the color and you don't want to, you know, any of that to affect your seasoning or anything of that nature for some reason, if you just don't like the color, they also offer another brand. So at Home Depot and Lowe's, they offer this brand here, White Rags Professional, and they are the same thing, guys. So quality-wise, as I mentioned, doesn't leave any lint behind, like the home stuff, where, you know, your home paper towels, they could leave a good amount of lint behind, but these, they act just like the Scott's paper towels, and they work just as great. So as I mentioned, if you guys don't want to go with the blue ones, they do offer white ones as well. All right, guys, so let's get to seasoning, and then I will show you at what temperatures I usually season my pieces. You only need a little bit, guys. You don't have to go too crazy. So obviously rub it in. These are starting to cool down. Not that hot anymore, but they're still warm. So these are still warm to the touch. They're not completely cooled, but these are warm enough where when you rub in the oil, it distributes a lot better. At least I've noticed that it does distribute a lot better if you warm up the skillets. And one of the seasoning methods that I love to use a lot, but it's kind of hard to do because it does take some time, is the Culinary Fanatics method, which is 200 degrees preheated in the oven for about 15 minutes. You give it a coat of seasoning, or, you know, you dab it on, rub it on, then you bump it up to 300, I think, and then give it a second wipe down, and then after that you you bump it up to your 450 or 500, I think, depending on the oil you're using, and you let it run its course for 1 hour, and it gives you awesome results. It gives you beautiful results. The only thing with that is that it is time consuming, and sometimes when you just want to give it a quick touch up, you don't necessarily have to do that. Or you could opt with the stovetop seasoning method, which is also great. So right now I rubbed it in. I'm going to grab another paper towel and then rub it down after that. So that's the first one. The lodge is still very warm. The lodge is still to the point where it can burn, but not that bad. As I mentioned, they're still nice and warm. So that's a great way for your seasoning or your oil to kind of glide along on the cast iron. So as I mentioned, get everything very well coated. Flip it around, and it's still very warm. So whenever you guys do this, make sure you guys don't burn yourself. I want to say about 2 or 3 times that I burnt myself. But I've learned my lesson. That was in the beginning. I no longer handle them extremely hot. Before I would, and that was just a bad idea. So I don't recommend that you guys season at high temperatures, or you handle your skillets when they're extremely hot. Just wait for them to cool down, and you'll be better off. As you can see, once you preheat these, the oil almost just kind of runs all over there, and it just almost glides over the cast iron, and it, for me, I feel like it provides better coating. At least in my opinion. All right, so that one's been wiped down. Moving on to the Wagner. Wiping these down. And it might not seem that I'm not very excited about this one, but guys, this is something that I'm very excited about. And my wife is, she'll usually ask me like, what why do you get excited about these old pieces? And I said, well, they don't make them like they used to, in the sense that the design's very I like the design. I wish that a modern company would pick up a design like this. This is a great design because not only is it comfortable in your hand, it has this, like the Asian skillets, it has this little thumb rest. The sloped edges is beautiful. Lodge makes theirs, but they are a little heavier. They're not milled like these. They're not necessarily smooth. They don't have to be. They still work. That's just me being nitpicky. But for me, that's just the that's just my way of thinking, my likes. I like the older vintage pieces because I've used them, and for the first couple of times that I started cooking with cast iron, I would say to myself, well, what's the difference between a piece like this and a modern lodge? And to be honest, the first piece that I got was a Wagner that was vintage, and I remember I made eggs, and in the beginning, cooking eggs for me in cast iron was so difficult that I almost didn't want to do it, and I would try my best not to cook eggs in cast iron. But then I used that Wagner skillet that I'm talking about. I no longer have it, but I used that Wagner skillet, and I used very minimal oil, and I did it actually on this grill, and this grill has a little burner over here, and I did it on that, and the eggs slid around. I made them scrambled. Nothing stuck, and then I said to myself, this is why people love vintage iron. Like it just, I was to be honest, I was blown away, and from there it's kind of where I fell in love with the vintage iron. Like the modern stuff, the Smithies, the Field Company, they all work similar as well. They're great, but the only difference with those is that they're doing their best to not have their skillets warp. So they are either thicker on the bottom, they're thicker on the walls, or thicker somewhere, and they carry some heft. This probably weighs about 3 pounds, maybe less. maybe 2.5 pounds. Very easy to maneuver. This is really honestly considered a chef skillet, and I believe it because it's lightweight, sloped angled walls, and if you're gonna fry some eggs in this, they're gonna be sliding around. And obviously there is technique, guys. You can't just, put this on the stovetop, crank it up all the way, and then expect to get perfect eggs. No, obviously there has to be a technique, and usually that's where people struggle the most, is the technique on how to cook eggs. So as you can see, wiping that down. Sorry, that was just my rant. Or not necessarily rant, but just, as I mentioned, just chatting. But anyway, as you can see, wiping these down. So I first coated them with that first paper towel that, obviously now accumulated some oil. And now since this is a dry piece, we're just rubbing it back down again. And why is that? It is because we want to prevent pooling or a thick, sticky mess that later is going to be difficult to remove. So you want to be as thorough as possible, and do take your time. No rush. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, you might get results that you don't like. And the Lodge, still very hot. That one is pretty much cool. The Wagner Ware, also pretty much cool. But this Lodge is still retaining a good amount of heat. All right, guys, and that is it. So after that, we place them upside down. You can find a lot of people and a lot of methods, but this works great for me. And then obviously I'm gonna kick on my grill. And I just go straight into, or just seasoning. I go straight into seasoning. I don't do the second wipe down, since I already gave it a good one right now. Took my time to do so. So now that is going to go up to at least, my mark is going to be about 500 degrees. So I already kind of know the dial, where the dials need to be in order for me to reach that 500. So since I've done this many times already, I kind of have it dialed in. And as I mentioned, I usually let it go for about 30 minutes, because if I let it go a little bit more, for some reason this gas grill usually almost burns away that seasoning. So 30 minutes for me on this is more than enough time. But let me get to the comments, guys. All right. Rick says, I'd love that pan for a user. Papa Dan says, Lewis, being from the South, I would love getting a Southern mystery skillet. Cynthia Wesley, hello, Papa. Hello, Rick D. Let's see, Honey Badger, does seasoning on the grill leave an extra residue on the pans? No. Even if you were to do this with with charcoal, it doesn't leave you with any kind of residue whatsoever. This is almost similar like the oven, pretty much the oven. This gas grill, or this grill itself, has diffusers, and obviously it's not going to be direct heat. But I always use low heat on these. I wouldn't recommend just blasting it full blast. Obviously, I would recommend low heat. Obviously, you need to moderate your temperature. As I mentioned, usually 500 for me is more than enough, and I leave it for 30 minutes, and I've had no issues whatsoever. And usually when I do my bigger pans, like the field, the number 16 field, usually that dual handle pan, I do it here because it is a bigger piece. And as I mentioned, I don't want to do it at my house, because obviously if I do it in the oven inside my house, it just makes a huge smoke mess inside the house, and I don't want to deal with that either. So anyway, moving on. All right, let's see. Papa Dan says, I've read and talked to seasoning makers. Their percentage of beeswax goes from 10% to 66%. Big swing in opinions. I think that the more beeswax, the more grayish it comes out on the first two coats. Probably. One thing that I have noticed is that if you get, I have noticed that some people that restore cast iron, and I follow people on Instagram, and what they usually do is they won't season a pan, but what they do is actually give it a coat of beeswax. So when they ship it to you, it's, you know, obviously protected from rust. And in my opinion, burning that off wouldn't make any sense, like, or washing it off for that matter. If it's coated in that beeswax, I say why not just you know, heat it in the oven first, obviously, to get that wax kind of melted away to a point where you can rub in oil to mix it in with the beeswax. And if you do that, I think you get great results. And you know, I don't have much knowledge on the seasoning ratios for, you know, like beeswax with grapeseed oil, canola oil, avocado oil, or whatever oil they use. Usually it's 2 or 3 mixes of oils with the beeswax, or 2 mixes of oils with the beeswax. But as I mentioned, I don't have much knowledge on the ratio and what would be great. But I would say that is a huge difference, like you mentioned. You know, a 10 to a 30 or 60, I'm sorry. So yeah, that is a huge jump. But hopefully, you know, they're looking out for the user, and hopefully that that doesn't mess with any of, you know, anyone's skillets for that matter. All right, let's see. Papa Dan says, I have and still playing with planning on making my own seasoning. This is how I got interested in the amount of beeswax. Oh, I see. Okay. Rick, look at Jed. Oh, Jed from Cook Culture. Yeah. Jed from Cook Culture has a lot of great videos out there, guys. If you guys haven't seen his channel, he's got great information for seasoning, for restoring, for, you know, if you got a pan that just needs to be nuked and redone, that's where you can get great information there. Let's see what else. Yeah, those shop rags, as I mentioned, guys, those are great. Yeah, I think you can buy them at Costco as well. Shop rags, yeah, they're really great. Papa Dan, never seen the towels in a box before, but I'm going to find them now. Great info. Yeah, and as I mentioned, you know, we're here to help out each other, guys. And for me, since we do a lot of seasoning, I do a lot of seasoning, I like to have the bigger boxes so that I'm not constantly purchasing individual rolls. Cynthia Wesley, only 2 or 3 times burned yourself? How about countless numbers for me? Yeah, you know, and it does suck that you get burned, but I mean, I burned myself with oil. I burned myself with when frying, you know, that oil that jumps and kind of gets you. But I'm at the point where it doesn't bother me as much as when I first started cooking. I remember when I would like be far away trying to flip something that had, you know, when we were frying or cooking something that had oil, and I didn't want that oil to, you know, land on my hands. But now it's like, you know, I'm up close, and if it does land, I'll just wipe it off. And to me, now I've kind of built a tolerance to it. Not that I'm impervious to it, because obviously I'm not, but I've grown to accept the pain. And since Papa Dan's, burning yourself must be a Louisiana thing. Still have burn marks from last season before I got COVID. That was 3 weeks ago. Yeah. No, yeah, and you know, I remember the times that I burned myself was usually when I was actually seasoning in my house with the oven. That's where most of my burns came from. When I started seasoning out here, that kind of changed. But you still, you know, you got to be careful. As I mentioned, always be careful, especially when handling hot cast iron. And yes, Honey Badger, aloe vera does work great, and I do recommend it a lot because I have seen people burn themselves. My mother-in-law accidentally dropped very hot oil, and she was wearing sandals on her feet, and it was pretty bad. But she had an aloe vera plant. We cut it, and I forget how it, we looked up information on how to do it, and sure enough, it worked great. Otherwise, I think she would have had severe burn on her feet. But yeah, that worked great. And aloe vera, yes, I do recommend that a lot. Let's see, what else? Cynthia says, cast iron has different types of burning sensations. Can't describe it, but you know the feeling. Yes, you do. And it's almost like you can't be mad because you're using your cast iron and then you burn yourself. At that point, you just roll with it, honestly. Papa Dan says, Lewis, I live in rural North Louisiana, so my main store is Walmart. No box of 200 shop towels. As I mentioned, you know what? I don't know if you are very tech savvy or not, but you don't even have to be. But if you can go online and find, a Amazon or eBay or anything of that nature, you can usually get something shipped to you that pretty much is about the same price, if not possibly even cheaper than if you were to go out to the store and buy it. But if you can't find them, yes, you can search online, and if you can't search online, then stick with what you know then at that point, because there's no reason for you to necessarily go out of your way so much just to get some paper towels. I think that if you have individual rolls, that's plenty enough to use. But as I mentioned, if you guys do a lot of seasoning and you don't want to be constantly purchasing rolls, then I do recommend the boxes. Honey Badger says, Wagner has some of the best mill swirls. I've seen to notice it more in the unmarked Wagners than the logo pieces, especially the pre-70s pieces. To me, I will have to say that I've noticed that Lodge has the best swirl marks. And I'm not trying to go against what you're saying, but to me, I feel like the Lodge has a little bit better. And the reason being is that every Lodge piece that I've come across has beautiful mill marks. The only downside to them is that they're hard to find. That, or they're warped, or they're damaged. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Griswold didn't really have deep mill marks. At least I don't think so. Neither did any of the other brands like Martin Stove and I think it's Martin Stove and Range. Those are kind of I've noticed them more on Lodge and Wagner. Yeah, you're right. Wagner is pretty much what I've seen most with the mill marks. All right, guys. So before I end, I do want to show you guys. So we're going to let that go, and I'm going to be ending the live soon. But if you guys have any questions for me, let me know. Right now, I will show you guys the field company and some other skillets that I have. So let me turn you guys around so you guys can see. All right, guys, so the ones I'm working on right now is just I seasoned this one. I used it and then I gave it a coat of seasoning. That's why it's sitting here. I'm gonna give it another one, and this is my Made in America flag skillet that I'm also doing a giveaway on this one as well. That's one of them. Here's another Lodge 3-notch. This one, I just used it not too long ago, and as you can see, the burner kind of just burned away the seasoning, so I have to touch this one up. Same thing with the inside. Got a little beat up, so I gotta give this a coat of seasoning. And this one's a really big guy, but yeah, this is the number 14. And the funny thing is that when I got this one, my brother brought it over. He found it for me as well, but when we got this, it was just a spinner. It would just spin, and I was like, wow, I was kind of disappointed. But once I got it cleaned up, because it was extremely extremely crusted over on both the inside and the outside. But once we got it cleaned up, it stopped spinning. So for me, it was a win. But anyway, guys, so this is the number 14 Lodge that I'm going to work on as well. Some carbon steel. I like using this a lot, and I use it mostly for like making breakfast items. I like this one a lot. As I mentioned, this one is the Lodge. What do they say on the CR carbon steel 15-inch? This is the dual handle one. This one needs some touch up. As I mentioned, I recently used it and posted a video with it, but I also used it, I want to say 2 or 3 days ago, and we made some homemade tortillas. That's why you can kind of see that burned in tortillas. And when you make tortillas, you don't really use any kind of oil. So it kind of burned off a little bit of that seasoning. So we're going to be working on this one. Carbon steel is something that I enjoy using a lot. And I have pretty much all the Lodge carbon steel. And I don't think I talk much about Lodge carbon steel, but I love it a lot. Probably one of my favorite carbon steel pans out there. The Debouillet or De Buyer, I don't know how to pronounce it, guys, sorry for that, but they make great pans as well. Matford as well makes great pans. I've never tried any of the Made In or the other brands that are pretty mainstream, but Lodge, you can't beat Lodge, especially with the prices. So for me, this is a great dual handle pan. Very lightweight as well compared to a similar sized carbon steel pan. And then lastly, we have my field that I've used it to make the tomahawks. I've used it to make some chicken and a lot of meals now, and it's gotten great use. And it's held up really well. It is, I'm not gonna lie, very heavy. And it's hard to handle, but I love this thing. This is one of my favorite pans at the moment, especially when I'm cooking for the family and with the family. Especially because, as I mentioned, I can make huge amounts of food in this, and I don't have to bring out, individual skillets or individual pots and pans. I can pretty much do everything in a single one. So if you guys are looking into getting a huge double handle skillet, obviously you can go with Lodge, which is I think $70 or $80 for the 17-inch. This number 16 Field Company is retailing for, I want to say, $250 plus shipping and tax. So you're looking almost at $300. So is it expensive? Yes, it is. Very expensive. And how many people are going to want to buy this at that price? Not very many. It is a very small market, I want to say. But as I mentioned, if you're lucky enough or if you have the money, this is a great purchase, especially if you have a large family. I don't know if they're currently offering the pan along with the grilling set, which was the spatula, the grilling spatula, the tongs, and the aluminum pan with the wire rack. They were including that with the price of this. So I don't know if they're still doing that, but that is one of the reasons why I jumped on getting this one. The other one obviously is because I love Field Company. They have great stuff. But one of the companies that I feel like will never die out is going to be Lodge. Lodge is here to stay, and it's going to stay here for a long, long time. They make great products. They've been around since they started, and they're the only lasting company, U.S. company, that has been here that amount of time. So Lodge is not going anywhere. Field Company, I feel like, also doing great for themselves. And we are living in a great time where we can buy any kind of, cast iron, whether it be Chinese made, American made, French made, Japanese made, even Japan, has their iron as well. So you can get cast iron products anywhere. And I do love that everybody's getting back onto this. So with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. But before I go, let me read the comments real quick, see if you guys have any questions. So Lodge 3-notch marked SK have beautiful swirls. That was from Papa Dan. Yes, I do. That's pretty much what I've been saying. I feel like the SK 3 notches had amazing swirl marks. That's why I say that Lodge has one of the most beautiful swirl marks out there, along with Wagner. Let's see what else. That was a score. Rick says, I love that field. Yep, it's a very nice skillet. As I guys have a large family, this is great for that. So Papa Dan asked, is the field heavier than the Lodge, both 16 or 17? So if you guys saw the live that I did for this unboxing, they are exactly the same size. Their differences lay on the wall height and the cooking surface. This one's bigger than the Lodge cooking surface wise, but rim to rim on the top, they're the same size. This one's a little bit bigger by handle to handle, and it is a little bit shorter, a little bit more shallow than the Lodge. Weight wise, they are, I want to say, almost identical. So not much of a difference in weight, but obviously the biggest difference is that this is milled. This is completely smooth with a little bit of grain. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Versus the Lodge, where it's pretty much, you know, the sand casted molding that gives it that texture. So anyway, guys, with all that being said, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate your guys' time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Any feedback in the comments would be well appreciated. And as always, guys, I will catch you guys on the next one. So have a good evening. Enjoy your guys' night, and we'll see you guys next week.